closely at cross-border trade, transportation, security, and human mobility at the Border Policy Research Institute. What data this year in 2025 versus data from 2024 is top of your mind? What evidence that you're seeing in the data that you analyze is top of your mind, as well as what you're seeing with your own eyes on the ground in Whatcom County?
It's a mix because a lot of the data that we would rely on hasn't really played out yet. I mean, we're hearing this a lot in the United States that we're just now starting to feel the impact of tariffs on consumer prices. So there's this delay between the data we would typically look at and this very fast moving situation. One of the simplest metrics we can look at is just the number of border crossings. How many BC cars are crossing the border into Whatcom County. It's a simple measure, perhaps overly simplistic, but it does give us a sense of the trends that impact broader economic situations, broader business investment relations. And what we saw coming out of COVID was this steady recovery. The numbers, as I mentioned, dropped really, really low because of those border restrictions. And it took people a while on both sides of the border to resume that travel. But we were on a steady path to recovery, maybe still around 20% of pre-pandemic normal when it comes to that cross-border travel volume. And that was recovering month over month, including January of this year when the numbers were up, I think, around 15% compared to January of the year before. And then in February, that switched dramatically, and that is directly, I think, tied to the rhetoric of the Trump administration, whether it's the tariff threats, the claims about fentanyl and undocumented immigration, or the comments around 51st state. We really saw Canadians react with ceasing their travel across the border. And that initial number in February of 2025 compared to 2024 was a drop of around 29%. And then we saw that number grow and it got higher and higher. And by April, we were seeing 50% fewer Canadian cars crossing into Whatcom County than we saw in April of 2024. That's a pretty drastic drop. We estimate around 5,000 vehicles, more or less, which probably translates to roughly 10,000 trips into Whatcom County. That's a lot of trips across the border. It's starting to recover slowly now, and I think summer is really going to be the telling time because that's our peak travel season as it is. I just ran the July numbers yesterday, and we're down around 28% compared to July of last year. So we saw this really unprecedented drop early in the winter that seemed to continue to grow as I think Canadians got more and more frustrated and angry. Also border concerns in there as well. A lot of fear by Canadians around crossing the US border. And that seems to kind of be tapering off a little bit. The question is going to be what happens in August, what happens in September, and is that 30% reduction sort of the new normal we're facing, or will we start to rebound from that as potentially the rhetoric dies down? But again, this is, sort of a magic glass ball scenario where the rhetoric could die down, our trade relations could normalize, or it could get worse.